So are you like a podcast listener, a reader, or like a TV watcher, or all of them? I reckon I'm mostly podcasts at the moment, not audiobooks, podcasts. I like the documentary series ones that are blow your mind and you're like, this is absolutely crazy. And I always find them and I'm always sending them to my friends. Like, I've got to share them with you guys. I've actually read some really good books lately. I've been really chuffed with actually having a book that makes me go to bed earlier. And that's like the one thing it has to do. If I'm not in bed earlier because I'm reading it, it's not good enough. And then I've even seen some good stuff on telly. So yeah, I just thought I would share them with you because I'm definitely that one in my friendship group that's like constantly sending around podcasts. Or is that just me? So I'll start with podcasts actually. So best new one I've listened to is called Believe in Magic. Have you listened to it? We can chat about it if you have, but like there might be some spoilers in the comments, I guess. It is amazing story. It's British. It's kind of a short one. I guess it's like 7-8 episodes, and it tells the tale of a young girl who was diagnosed with a terminal illness and set up a charity called Believe in Magic to help other children who are ill have experiences. So we know those types of charities. But she has One Direction involved. It's like her really big platform. They do loads of shows for her. They wear all the merch. She makes so much money. She's not terminally ill, guys. It is, you know that from the beginning, but the story as it unfolds just gets more and more shocking and bizarre. And they have her sisters in it, and they talk about her childhood, and it is just the most wild story ever. I sent it to a few friends, even though I, at the moment, you might think I'd find that triggering because I lost somebody recently and my friend lost somebody recently, but she was like, why did you send me this? But then she was like, no, it was absolutely brilliant. Just got to get into it. You will love. The next one I was going to recommend, there's one called Stolen Hearts. So I'm trying to stay away from like the real true crime murder situations because I got a little bit too deep into it. I had to remember I'm not actually a detective. I don't need to listen to brutal murders of an evening, and they don't uplift me as much, surprisingly so I got really into Stolen Hearts though, which is again like a documentary journalist revealing, and it's a police officer who falls in love with a crook, and they're both in the podcast, which is so unusual. So you get to hear both sides of their stories, how they fall in love, what happens when it gets exposed, what he's been doing. It is just really, really fascinating to hear from the two of them. And then if you've listened to it or you don't yet, then I always wait until I'm about 2/3 of the way through, then I Google what they look like. Do you do that as well? Then I Google the pictures and I'm like, oh my God. And that was a real shock what those two look like. And that's definitely going to end up being a Netflix documentary soon. But if you listen to the podcast first, you are in the know. It's a really fascinating tale of kind of romance, love, finding love again later on in life, co-parenting, what it's like to discover that the person you're in love with isn't who they really say they are. The whole thing is really, really easy to listen to, relatable, but also really amazing. I listened to one, this is darker, so it's called Hoaxed. I don't think I talked about it last time. I did do a podcast thing before and I'll leave it below because those are brilliant ones as well. But Hoaxed is it starts off, again, it's a British one actually, and it's also around Hampstead, and it starts off with these children's police recordings of when they make a statement to the police saying that they have been taken into a cult in Hampstead, and that it's their teachers doing it, their dad's in it, and they are doing all sorts of things like sacrificing children, being punished for things, and it is a wild story. And it starts with those tapes, and straight away it starts with knowing that none of what the children told them was true. But what happened, this is a tiny bit of a spoiler, but the podcast is so worth listening to because you get all the tales from the children. Eventually that tape gets leaked and it goes huge in America. And so in America there's this story going around that in this place called Hampstead in North London, which is like the most leafy suburban place, that there's this satanic cult who are killing their children. And so there's this big wave of people who come from America to basically attack and confront these suburban housewives who attend a certain school because the kids have made up this story. So it's really, really fascinating. There is dark sides to it. Obviously why the children did that is very dark reasoning and how the manipulation and things like that. But again, it's just a brilliant piece of investigative journalism that I enjoyed listening to. Loved it so much. And then Fed Up, this is on the Wondery app. That is my favourite app to go to for great podcasts. And this is an influence one, which I love. Do you ever listen to Scamfluencers? So it's basically a girl who is a fitness guru online, and she creates her own product. So she starts selling this product, a health product, and another health influencer who kind of knows her is a bit suspicious of the product because she starts to hear people having very bad reactions to it, and she's like, but you're not really a doctor, so how can you create and sell this product? And it turns into this war between the two of them that's really interesting, and actually you can't tell which one's right because they're both a bit wrong, and it just plays out on social media, but you've got the girls in the podcast. So again, a really, really interesting one because it brings up a lot of questions about who are these health gurus that we're following? How far do we go down, like following people so they become like almost like cult leaders? That's extreme, but you know, like what qualifications do you have to have, and when do we challenge people who are online with a big presence, and what can they do to us, because it gets a bit like that. So it's a really, really good one. So I hope you enjoy some of those podcasts. As I say, podcasting is so good for relaxing. If your hands are busy, you can be listening to something, and I always used to like play Play-Doh, and some days the summer holidays are so long, and sometimes it's quite lonely if older ones are going off and doing things in your home with a baby. I had years and years of that, and I just found podcasts for company to get myself, you know, I can still be busy and I can still be playing and stuff, but I can be listening to something. So that's how I use them. So books, I reckon, like most of you, if you haven't read Sorrow and Bliss yet by Meg Mason, I'm so jealous of you. It is one of those books I've read that I wish I could read but for the first time again. I don't think I'll ever reread it. Do you do that with books that you love? Like, I'm never going to reread it because it was just perfect. So it starts with a woman, it's her 40th birthday, and her husband's doing her wedding speech, her birthday speech, and then it says like 5 days later he left me. So it's this gushing speech about how much he loves her, and then it's like, why on earth has he left her afterwards? And then it goes right back to sort of the beginning, and it focuses around Christmases and family Christmases actually each year and what's happening each Christmas, and it's just written so well. It is so funny. I actually laughed out loud so many times reading the book. I love the relationship. It's about her and her sister, and it's about motherhood as well, and how her sister's a mother, she doesn't want to be a mother. And why that unfolds. So that's a really interesting dynamic. Her and her sister are hilarious together, and I listened to her on a podcast, and she said she doesn't have a sister, and so she wrote like the kind of dream sister relationship, and it really was, and I enjoyed it, but it is one of the reasons I probably won't listen to it again. But I love the relationship with her husband, her mum and dad. The whole story is just her life unfolding. It's not a humongous like plot per se, but it's a lot about her mental health and how the family dynamics around this Christmas change each year. But it sounds boring. I'm making it sound boring, but it was literally raved about. It was the it book. And if you have read it, I've got a few others that you'll like if you loved it. So I also then went on to buy, she's only got 2 books out, Meg Mason. The other one's called I'll Be Mother. Or You Be Mother. I'll put it on screen. I've literally lent all these books out, so I don't have copies of them, because I've given them to everyone. And I loved it just as much. And it's about a young girl, actually sent to a friend, a young girl who goes to Kingston University, which weirdly is near me, meets an Australian guy at uni and gets pregnant and has to relocate to Australia with a very, very young newborn baby to see if their relationship can get off the ground. And in doing so, she meets a friend at the swimming pool who is an older lady in her 60s, maybe, who's recently bereaved. Her husband's died, and she's got 3 children who live abroad. So it's just really, again, the characters, the humour, the story, or just going along. It's so original. It's not like, oh, I've heard this bit before. How they make this unlikely friendship, how she sort of mothers her. She needs a mother, she needs a kind of daughter. How the daughters feel about this random girl who's kind of infiltrating their family, how her relationship goes living in a new country and with her new parents-in-law and her boyfriend. The whole thing is just so brilliant, and I almost can't pick between the 2 which one I love. So get both of them because they're different, but the writing style is funny, unique. It's like the quirky quirkiest, funniest style of writing that I'm just obsessed with. So hopefully she'll bring another one out. I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I didn't realise is like a TikTok book. Check me being trendy. I read this I was in the hospice with my sister. You probably don't need to know that detail. But I read this book and I really enjoyed it because it's so dark and it questions kind of like white privilege girls basically, and this girl who's like really, really beautiful. It's like a model, but she's really like messed up, and she decided she's gonna have a whole year where she sleeps. She wants to knock herself out for a year and wake up a new and improved person at the end of it. So it's a bit of that shamanic healing people are doing at the moment. She just wants to purify everything, not purify. So she goes to all these different New York doctors and she gets loads and loads of pills, and she arranges that she will be taking these pills and her friends lock her in the house, but she wakes up and she does things during her drug-induced sleep. But it's so dark but really funny, and I can see it being like a Margot Robbie movie or something soon, because it's just that type of an edgy sort of questions like culture and how she can kind of survive and just still be looked up to when she's just this total mess of a person. But it's a really funny dark comedy of a book, so I recommend that one. So I recently loved best thing I've watched on telly for ages, Colin from Accounts. Have you seen it? It's Australian. I thought it was going to be like an American office place situation drama, and I was like, I'm not really into those as much, but Colin from Accounts isn't. It's about a couple who, it's a bit like Catastrophe if you watch that. It's a couple who meet because he's driving to work, she crosses the road, and they sort of look at each other, get a little eye contact, a bit more than that, and he runs over a dog, and then they have this sort of responsibility of this dog together, and that's the kind of cute meet. But the whole thing is just so brilliantly funny between the two of them. It's like, are they going to have like they've got to be combined. It's like, are they going to be a couple? But he's much older. Are they going to be like a brother and sister relationship? And it's just really, really interesting to see how it all unfolds. But there's so many funny moments in it. My parents loved it, and we're all having a hard time, but they were like, it's so nice to laugh at stuff. All my friends watched it, and then we're messaging each other little bits from it. So it's a really good one, and it's not too long, but hopefully there'll be a second series. And my last one I'm still watching at the moment, is called Someone Somewhere. So this popped up on my like best TV of 2023, gotta watch it, won loads of awards, and I was like, what is it? No one famous in it, well maybe she is, sorry, no one famous that I recognise, and it's this girl called Sam, and her sister's died 6 months before, but it's not dwelling on that, and it's about how she's kind of rebuilding her life, and she makes friends with this kind of, I guess you'd call him the misfit. He's like this gay guy who's like got these geeky glasses and this weird comb over, and they make this unlikely friendship. So the whole thing is it's a very platonic relationship, but the way that they chat to each other just makes you laugh so much, and he's basically trying to bring her back to life after a hard time. So I just love it so much. I have to watch it with no one else around. Like I have to plan to watch it because I love it, and there's 2 series, but I'm like ramping through them too quickly. But it's funny, and it's a bit like Glee, I would say, for grown-ups, because it's a bit of the misfits who come together and are like the best company and just do the craziest things. Like they start this choir, and she's doing her singing lessons again, and I've always thought that sometime I'm going to be a good singer. It's not happened yet, but I have been in lots of choirs. I just love singing, so I really enjoy watching her do that. But it's so feel good. You feel so uplifted watching it, even though there's dark things as well. It's how her friendship really pulls her through, and there's just little micro moments in it where I'm like, this is genius, absolute genius. So those are mine. I need your tips, particularly for books. Now you know my kind of style, because I need a few books to go away with. Like, do I need to read that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow? I just don't like it books. I get a bit like, oh, I want to be original, but then they're always the best ones. Podcasts for sure, because I'm running out. I'm listening to one called The Girlfriends, which I just started, which is a bunch of girlfriends who discover that their ex, they think, murdered his first wife, and they're like sleuthing it. So I've just started that, which is good, and I've just started A Very British Cult, which is really good. So I just need some more recos, because if I'm not listening to a podcast, I'm thinking, and if I'm thinking, I'm being mean to myself, and if I'm being mean to myself, I'm not being my best self. Basically, I need to listen to crime to feel good about myself. That's what it is. That's why the obsession is there. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you on my next video, which is coming up this week. I would love you to follow if you've enjoyed this video. If you do already follow me, please hit the little bell, because that will help my content get out a little bit more as well.